Vybz Kartel freedom any day now, you know. Sean Storm freedom any day now, you know. Andre St. John and Kahir Jones freedom any day now, you know. But anyway, I could talk about this. So let's start off with habeas corpus because this is going to play a great role. As news headline says that Vybz Kartel's attorneys have now filed and Sean Storm's attorneys have now filed the habeas corpus. So habeas corpus in the Latin word, which literally means to have the body off. But it doesn't mean to have the body off who they thought was killed. It means to have the body off. In other words, it is an order that is issued by the courts to a person who has detained another person to produce the body of the person who is detained, which means it would produce the courts in Jamaica would now have to produce the body of or the person, Sean Storm, Vybz Kartel, and the rest of the guys to come and stand before the courts. What the habeas corpus laws in Jamaica basically says, habeas corpus is the power of the court to summon a detained person to examine the circumstances of the individual's detention and order his unconditional release if the court concludes that the detention is unlawful or unjustifiable. Remember, the law lords at Privy Council in the UK quashed the conviction of Vybz Kartel, Sean Storm, and the rest of the guys, which returned them to being innocent men who are accused, not convicts. So, why are they still being held in lockup? Here comes habeas corpus to the rescue. Now, as far as Vybz Kartel being free, there are a lot of people right now who are just keeping their fingers crossed and are waiting. And Kartel's attorneys seeking release at the moment for the men before the retrial hearing. 60 days after the United Kingdom UK Privy Council quashed, not squashed, quashed the murder conviction of Vybz Kartel and his 3 co-accused, the Supreme Court yesterday began hearing a habeas corpus application that was filed on behalf of 3 of the accused. I believe one of them is not going to be able to make it out because he has a separate incident of which he has been convicted of or found guilty of or something like that. So, let's go with this. Following 6 orders by Justice Andrea Thomas yesterday, the matter was adjourned until the end of this month. We are at the 15th of this month. The end of this month is only 15 more days. Attorney Isaac Buchanan, who represents Vybz Kartel, whose real name is Adidja Palmer, Sean Storm, and Andre St. John, is seeking, based on what he cites as a gap in the law, to have 3 of the accused men freed at least 11 days before a retrial hearing at the Jamaican Court of Appeals. Remember, there will have to be a retrial hearing. Vybz Kartel's team is supposed to put together, and Andre St. John, Sean Storm, the rest of the guys, their attorneys will have to put together a case basically to say to the courts why there should not be a retrial. And then the state will be allowed their say before the same courts to rebuttal that to say why they think there should be a retrial. And then the courts will go off to decide, does this case have a leg to stand on? Is this in the fair pursuit of justice? Do we have enough to convict? Should we take it to trial, etc., etc.? Now, should they be allowed to go, or should we retry them on the same charges? So here comes the attorney who is seeking for the men to be let out of lockup at least 11 days before this process takes place. one can appreciate that the liberty of the men is left unanswered. The men are in no man's land at this point. One would call it La La Land. Just out there. That's why everybody is asking, okay, so if the Privy Council quashed their conviction, why are they still behind bars? If the Privy Council quashed their conviction and it returned them to be an innocent men who are accused, why are they behind bars? Because we don't normally keep people who are accused behind bars for extended periods of time. We keep people behind bars who are facing trial, but we have strong evidence that they could disrupt the trial, like making witnesses disappear, doing this, that, and the other, or we have strong evidence that says that they actually did it. And then we keep people behind bars who are tried and convicted. But why are these guys still behind bars? It's a lacuna in the law where you're not convicted, you're not charged, but you're held in abeyance, according to Isaac Buchanan. I think in terms of where the law is, that the legislator would have needed to make certain amendments to account for a situation where conviction is quashed, but the matter is not yet before the courts, Isaac Buchanan said. Now, the retrial hearing is set to begin on June 10th, which is not far away, and it is expected to last 5 days. On March 14th of 2024, the UK law lords at Privy Council sent the case back to the Court of Appeals in Jamaica for a decision on whether the men should face a retrial for the 2011 murder of Clive Lizard Williams. It is up to that court to decide where it goes from here. Somebody asked us, so Souflotv, if them do a retrial and find them guilty again, what happened this time? Can they fight it all the way back to the Privy Council again? And the answer is yes. It's a completely new case if it should go that way, and they can absolutely appeal it all the way back to the Privy Council again. I'm concerned on many levels though about the judicial system in Jamaica and how they handled this case in the first place, which I don't think was a mistake. I think it was an orchestrated plan between a handful of people to get a guilty conviction and to keep Vybz Kartel and those guys right where they wanted them for as long as they could. Luckily for a person like Vybz Kartel, he had the wherewithal, the finances especially, to fight this conviction for over a decade and all the way to the Privy Council. This is something that the average Jamaican citizen Joe Blow does not have. So what happens to Joe Blow when he is not a Vybz Kartel with so much resources? He will have to just simply rob that time. Now, the fourth accused, Kahir Jones, is not a party to the habeas corpus proceedings because he has another matter before the courts. So there you have it. Now, yesterday, Isaac Buchanan told the court that there are issues that took place that he did not wish to put on record, and he would only say that the defense was also handicapped by events of nature, seemingly in reference to why he was now before the civil division of the Supreme Court and was unwilling to wait the retrial hearing for a decision. Now, speaking with the Gleaner, and I think that might have something to do with Paula Llewellyn and her having to step away from her post and someone else temporarily filling in. But make no mistake about it, they said that they were going to seek a retrial, and whether Paula Llewellyn is there or not, that will still go forward, right? Now, speaking with the Gleaner later on, Isaac Buchanan said that for me, 1 day in prison is like 1,000 years. And so for that reason, one can appreciate that having your conviction set aside or quashed and to be still in prison awaiting that, it can be very stressful. And certainly, just in terms of increasing or advancing the jurisprudence so that we can give effect to the Constitution, we found that it was necessary to do so. Now, when asked how Vybz Kartel was doing, Isaac Buchanan said this. He said, I would say at this time, it's been a good time to be waiting on a hearing. And for those reasons, I can say that I will not be doing good. Let's revisit that again. When asked how Vybz Kartel is doing, Isaac Buchanan said, quote unquote, I would say at this time, it's been a good time to be waiting on a hearing. And for those reasons, I can say that I would not be doing good. So I guess you can say he'd be doing good because his conviction is already quashed. He doesn't have that hanging over his head anymore. However, of course, he's wondering, so why the hell am I still locked up? Right? And now waiting on a hearing to decide if he should be let go altogether or if they're going to completely retry him on the same charges. You are doing good, but you will not be doing good. Especially since you are still incarcerated at the moment, even after the Privy Council has said your conviction was quashed. Now, back in court, Thomas said that having read the law and come to some understanding, she could have made a decision yesterday. However, the matter involved the office of the Director of Public Prosecution. This is Paula Llewellyn's office, where Paula Llewellyn is no longer at the head of the office. And she wanted the application to be served on that office. The judge was of the view that the Director of Public Prosecution is an interested party, as well as for the jurisprudence, that proper submissions we put before the court by those parties, Isaac Buchanan would later tell the media, seeking to explain the reason for Monday's early adjournment when the matter was set to be heard over 3 hours. Why did it end early? It ended early because the judge basically wanted the Department of Public Prosecution to have a piece of this pie. Do y'all have anything to say about this habeas corpus and why they should be held further or released? Conditionally or unconditionally rather. Thomas now, who reasoned with Isaac Buchanan about the law during the hearing, told the court that the men were certainly not acquitted. I don't know how Thomas come up with that the men are not acquitted. The highest court in the land, which is the Privy Council, quashed the conviction. Therefore, it does not exist. But Thomas, who reasoned with Buchanan about the law during the hearing, told the courts that the men were certainly not acquitted. I could ask you certain questions. I could ask you, was there a complete acquittal? There is no conviction, but was there acquittal? Because that's where we start. There is no acquittal. Yes. We are awaiting a decision. So, if there is no acquittal, the situation would refer for there to be a retrial. Okay, so this person named Thomas is obviously onto some friggery and some foolishness, because the person asks, I could ask you certain questions. I could ask you, was there a complete acquittal? Okay, the answer there. Then the person says there is no conviction, but there was no acquittal. That don't make no damn sense. Because if that conviction was quashed, making it no conviction, then there is nothing to acquit from. Because the conviction being quashed did away with everything. Anyways, Isaac Buchanan said that he would simply ask the court for the submission to be ventilated, and it has entirely a matter for the judge. That is the question for the court to answer, because if it reverts to the situation, then there is a situation within the Constitution, Buchanan said. Yes, but because the matter is before a particular court, that is where you make that application, Thomas replied. My lady, that particular application, based on the law, is not an application that competent court has any jurisdiction to intervene, which would be the issue of bail, Buchanan said. Then Thomas ordered that the matter be adjourned until May 29th and 30th. Thomas, obviously being the judge and obviously seeming to have some type of a bias going on, and definitely not in a hurry to say let them out now. They're obviously going to be fighting this release tooth and nail. The DPP should also be added as an interested party, and the documents be served by the defense, which is Isaac Buchanan them, on the DPP by 4 p.m. yesterday, immediately. An amended application added the DPP was to be filed on, off, before today. The DPP is to file a response to include submission on or before May 20th, and costs of the application are to be drafted. The superintendent of Tower Street Adult Correctional Center, where the men are being housed, is also a respondent in the application. I don't know why the superintendent of the prison, where the men are being housed, should also be a respondent in the application. But I think I know why. Because them are going to ask him, what's the record like for these guys behind bars? Are they big gang leaders behind bars? Are they creating a ruckus back there? Are they model citizens? Are we letting out a couple of madmen, Mad Maxes? Or do you think that they are fit to go back into our society? That's the conversation I could see them having behind the scenes. Now, that entity, which is the Tower Street Adult Correctional Center Superintendent, that entity is represented by Attorney of the Director of State Proceedings. Well, what I can tell you is this. This obviously seems like they are in no hurry to let Vybz Kartel them out. This obviously seems like there is going to be a fight, and it's an uphill fight to let them out. They're going to fight it tooth and nail, and this was my biggest concern from the beginning when the Privy Council did not just say let the men go and actually sent this back to the Court of Appeals in Jamaica, the same court that made such a big error, and sent it back to the same system of the same people who obviously have another agenda when it comes to this case. So we will definitely see how this one goes. I'm still keeping my fingers crossed. I'm still saying free Vybz Kartel and Sean Storm and the rest of them. I'm still saying that they will be free. But obviously, some people don't want that to happen, and they are in a position to slow the process as much as they can, to the point where it looks like the process has come to a halt. Leave your comments in the comment section below. Tell me what you think about this one, and I'll catch you on the next video. It's Souflotv. I'm out. Peace.